Welcome, everybody, to another edition of the In the Paint Show. This is Ronnie Flores and my co-host, Ani Umana, back at it for another week. Episode 119. Ani, we just keep plugging along as the season plugs along, and now we're in the postseason. How's it going? Are you getting the playoff fever yet, getting ready for March Madness and that, or are you still kind of in grind mode?
It's like a mixture of both. It's like grind mode, but playoff mode. UIL playoffs, crazy. NCAA, you got conference tournaments. I think Patriot League, American East. You got a couple conference tournaments this week
coming up,
and then you got Final Four coming up. So I mean next month. So busy times.
Yeah, it's gonna blow by, just like Ja Morant keeps blowing by guys all over the place. So yeah, it's.
Did you catch that game?
Oh man, I mean, is he the hottest ticket in basketball?
By far,
probably so. Yeah, I mean, if you want to just see a player, you're going to want to watch Ja Morant right now.
Yes.
Obviously, a team and players people don't want to see right now is the Lakers. We'll talk about that in a little while. You know, they're kind of having a little bit of a drama meltdown, but we'll get into that. We'll talk about various topics. Obviously, we want to hit the Pangos Jr. All-American camp, which was in Southern California this weekend. A lot of good players from all over. Some players you might be familiar with, Ani. But let's talk a little bit. Starting probe the paint a bit. Let's talk about college basketball. And again, we were saying last week, hey, hopefully we have a normal week, but again, anything but normal.
Saturday messed all that up.
Yeah. Nothing normal about anything we're doing right now, but it's a crazy time in the world, crazy time in college basketball. So we keep that in perspective. But yeah, on Saturday, like you mentioned, first time ever since the AP polls came out in the late 40s. Yeah, that long ago, the late 40s, 75 years ago. Gonzaga, the top 6 teams lost. So Gonzaga, Arizona, Auburn, Purdue, Kansas, and Kentucky all went down. So, I mean, Ani, it seems like it would be easy. I mean, I do rankings every week. It's just like keep all the teams the same.
Right. Yeah, because that's what I was going to ask you. I was like, okay, Gonzaga's 1, Arizona's 2. Do they deserve to be it? But it's like, I want to get your take on it. Like, who lost? I mean, at that point, it's like, who lost better? Yeah,
I guess, maybe is it team reeling? Did a team lose, like, badly? Did they lose at home? You can start breaking it down a little bit. But I think, I just don't think the 7 team should jump to number 1. Then why did you vote it that way the last week?
That's true.
Why weren't they higher? Like, it happens. But again, that doesn't happen very often. So I guess the big winner of the whole spill, the whole weekend, really was Baylor, right? Because they moved up after beating Kansas. So Baylor moved up pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
I think they moved to 3. So
correct.
Baylor started 15-0, then they hit a snag. What do you take there in Waco, Ani? Are they back on track, or is just, or is everybody else losing? So they got that win, or are they kind of back on track after that hot start to the season?
I just think Big 12 play is tough. I mean, just every game you're going in that league is tough. I mean, even from West Virginia, they gave Texas a battle, and they're last in the Big 12. It's just Big 12's tough. I think Baylor's finding their groove again. They kind of got, I wouldn't say a shooting slump, but just guys like, weren't making the shots like Flagler, Kenjo, LJ Cryer. They really, rely on them guys really making shots, and they just got in a little bit of a slump. But it's tough. I mean, Big 12 play is tough. I mean, they just
it's hard to win on the road.
Yeah, but I think Baylor. I think people were a little too ahead when talking about Baylor being better than the team they were last year, especially at that same time when they're hitting that deal. But I mean, I think they have a chance to win a national title. I think they have a chance to make the Final Four, but it's going to be tough. I mean, it's going to be tough.
If they make back-to-back Final Fours with basically a whole new crew, especially the backcourt, obviously replacing 2 NBA guards, that would be very, that would be like, wow, that'd be big for that program.
For sure.
Kind of similar to like, Butler or something making back-to-back Final Four or something like that. You're like, wow, Baylor, And obviously they've had good players. Again, maybe it doesn't look like that in Texas, but from the outside, if you're living in the Pacific Northwest or in deep in the South, you're like Baylor, wow, like because they were really good last year, So
Mhm.
that's awesome to see because that's got to help their recruiting. And then you got Texas Tech who's recruiting pretty well. You got a lot of other teams in Texas. Is like the recruiting is amped up tremendously. Looking
Uh,
at it from the outside, like before would be like, okay, that guy's going to go to out
Texas.
of state,
Yeah.
meaning Oklahoma or Louisville, or like North Carolina or Bluebird or a Blue Blood, or he's going to go, like you said, to UT. Now it's
Mhm.
like, no, not necessarily. That top kid can go 3, 4, 5 different places.
Well, 100%, especially with Tech. I mean, they just
Yeah,
went undefeated at home this season.
yeah,
You got Baylor. You still got Texas, who's still a top 25 team in the country.
yeah,
I mean, you just got a lot of options in this area that these top kids go to. SMU.
yeah.
We get kids that are top 20 players that go to SMU every seems like every year so far from a while. So I mean, you got a lot U of H. We can't forget
Yeah, they
about them.
just went to the Final Four.
Right. I mean, like you said, if we were to have this
Yeah.
conversation 10 years ago, would Baylor,
No.
Houston, SMU be getting the top guys, like that? No.
Yeah. Well, you think of a kid like James Akinjo. He starts at Georgetown. It doesn't work out there. He goes to Arizona, which seems to be like, yeah, okay, kid from West Coast going to go to Arizona. Like he's at Baylor,
Right.
like he's like a Bob Cousy finalist. Like, hey, that's a pretty good move for him.
Oh, for sure, for
Third
sure.
time's the charm. And he's a good player. There's no doubt about it. I mean, I got to see him a bunch. He played in the Ballislife All-American game. So, I mean, like, I'm not doubting his skill level at all. But for him to be at Baylor as a third school from a California kid probably doesn't, like you said, 10 years ago, that ain't happening.
No,
So
100%.
it's pretty awesome to see. But, yeah, so I guess Gonzaga and Arizona just stayed number one.
Yeah.
Like it just stayed number. Auburn dropped a little bit, lost to Tennessee. That's one of Arizona's losses, as we talked about on an earlier episode of the In the Paint show. Arizona had that crazy game in Tennessee.
Yeah.
So
Does Arizona make the Final Four this year?
Yeah. I think I want to see them because I'll get the chance to see them in the first couple rounds at the Pac-12 tournament in Vegas, and I'll have a good answer for you. My answer right now is that it's still wide open. I think they have the continuity, but they're not overly talented. Like, this team is just, if they have a bad half or something, that they can overcome it and win any game to get in the first 4 rounds. They'll get to the Final Four. If they have a bad showing, they're going to be in a dogfight, whether it's a second round or the Sweet 16. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Obviously, once you get to Elite 8, you got to you can't make many mistakes.
Right.
I think they can win a first round game even without their best effort. Without their best effort, one of the top 6 seeds. Obviously, if they stay at number 1 right now, I think they deserve a number 1. But again, we'll see. The conference tournaments are going to be exciting. But yeah, so right now, to answer your question, I think it's 50-50. We'll come back and talk about it obviously a little later, but they're not a slam dunk team, even though, like you said, they're 1 and 2. Let me ask you this: is Gonzaga a slam dunk team?
I don't think so. I don't think so, especially making it to the Final Four. Now, I think, they have veteran type leadership.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if they get in the hole, they can fight through it.
Yeah.
It's just they kind of struggle with them teams that play fast, space them out, kind of put in pick roll. Obviously, Chet does all job, but like when teams play fast and they kind of get after it and space out, Gonzaga has a hard time. I do wonder, like, when that second round, that Sweet 16, like you talked about Arizona, who that matchup would be. If it's a team that they don't really, match up well against, they could get popped early.
Yeah.
But I do think they have the veteran leadership. They've been there before. So I do give them that advantage. So it wouldn't surprise me that they're, but I think it'll be more difficult than the previous years.
Yes. And I also think that, like you said, if they get into a tight one, Arizona is going to be pressing a little bit more. They tend to panic when they're down a little bit. They'll jack some threes. They can't do that. Their guards tend to jack threes when they're down 6, 8. They'll jack a 3. They don't play through it sometimes and work to get the best shot like they do when they're up 6.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just some teams execute down, some don't. So this is a little thing they got to work on. But They have a chance. So here's the thing: how often? And I'll ask you this because I know you like to think about where, like you said, where they're going to play and who might be the matchup. How often is a West Coast team 1 and 2? So who's getting shipped to the Southeast region or the Midwest? Right now, you would think if Arizona wins the Pac-12 tournament, they're going to go 1, but
Right.
they won't be in the West.
Right.
If Gonzaga wins the WCC tournament, so you get
Yeah.
they're going to be a 1 somewhere else.
Yeah, they're gonna be one somewhere else. So that'd be interesting. I really don't even know. Like that's a
yeah. They probably won't go to the East region. That number 1 team in the East region will be,
like
one of the East teams. Obviously, right. I mean, whoever's maybe Kentucky or Purdue maybe stay in the Midwest. I could see Arizona in the Southeast.
Yeah, I was thinking like maybe they move to the Southeast, one of those teams.
Yeah.
Yeah, like Midwest, I would say like Purdue, if they win their conference. Yeah, East Coast be like Kentucky, probably somewhere in Big East potentially. Like, it's
number 1. Yeah.
But I think they'll probably move to the Southeast if anything.
Yeah, I think so as well. If it stays like this, obviously there could be a million results coming in. But yeah, that's the thing. If you're an Arizona fan, you're rooting for Gonzaga to go down.
Right.
So you can get the number 1 in the West, and then you're in San Diego and or San Francisco, and then you're staying in like Portland. I think they're the next round's in Portland or something like that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so it's basically
on the West Coast. Yeah, they would stay right on the West Coast. They travel pretty well. So that's just something to keep an eye on. Like in the overarching picture of this, Ani, does this make college basketball better than ever? Like just this what happened Saturday? Or or is it less interesting? And the reason I say that is we talked about this before on this show on many episodes is how many players have college eligibility that are not on a college team. They're in the G League, they're going overseas, they're hitting the portal, they're not on plane, they're trying to go professional. The teams have so much more turnover. Is that good because it's parity, or is that like no, people want to see Carolina, Duke, and UCLA?
You know what? Like you said, excuse me. We talked about it with the NBA and the NFL. Comparing like how the NFL anybody can win, right? And compared to NBA is always just the same old teams. Which teams are gonna win the title or be in the finals or be in the conference finals. And I think this makes college basketball better because we really just don't know. Like there's no clear cut favorite to win it all. There's no clear cut Final Four team. And the conference tournaments are interesting. Like you really don't know who's going to win what. Like obviously the WCC, you would think Gonzaga, but St. Mary's gave them hell, and
put it on them.
Yeah. So like, who said they couldn't do it again? So I think the unpredictability, the not knowing, is the fun part of it. You don't look at it like high school playoffs here. We're all waiting for Duncanville Richardson, but after the second round. How Duncanville was in a dogfight with Rockwall Heath. Richardson won by like I think 2 or 3 points against Allen. Now everyone's like, "Oh, will they meet you?" But like just the
anticipation,
like just the unpredictability of it, I think makes college basketball better. But I would wish that some of the guys that you said that had eligibility that are in the G League or in the portal or overseas, if they stayed a year,
the rush to get there is just, and we'll talk about that a little later. About playing in the NBA, how what that's turning into. But I agree with you. I think there's so many good players that could just be still in college and contributing. And instead of toiling around, especially with what's going on in the world right now with Ukraine and Russia, and it's like, are all these jobs really plush pro jobs? Or like, are you just delaying? Like if you play in a B league or a semi-pro, like, are you just delaying you got to jump in the real world and get a job, like
right.
Is that everybody a pro, or like, again, we could maybe talk about that down the line. That maybe that's a topic in itself, but I'm on like to see a team grow and like, okay, that team made the Sweet 16 or Elite 8. I can see them make the Final Four next year, but you don't really have that no more. The turnovers every year, but I do like the unpredictability. I do like the excitement. The games are going to be awesome. I think people have been talking about it too. Even a couple people that hit me up, they're like, "Man, I can't wait for the March Madness this year because it's wide open." So, like you said, that has an NFL feel to it. Anybody can win, And we talk about the Blue Bloods. Let's talk about the two biggest schools, pretty much arguably of all time. The two biggest programs,
Yeah.
or the three biggest programs. I guess that'd be Carolina, Kentucky, and UCLA. Like historically, and obviously Duke
Right.
in Mike Krzyzewski era, it's like UCLA's won one title in 50 years.
Yeah.
Coach Cal's won one title. You know,
Yeah.
like it has been kind of open. Like even though we like these, Kentucky, UCLA,
Yeah.
Kansas, North Carolina's been successful under Roy Williams, you know. But yeah, you're right. It's already kind of been open. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, it
Butler
has
did, Chaka Smart with his team at VCU.
VCU.
So
Beard at Tech.
yeah, it's Beery. Yeah, Tech kind of got in there. Virginia made a run. So it's already been like that. So I think it's good for the game, even though, like per se, let's be honest, and we don't like to down what we do for a living, but it's like college basketball's talent level hasn't been, over and over the greatest. But that the pageantry and the games are still good. So
right.
we'll see how that goes. Let's jump into our next topic, and we'll just jump right into going from college to the youth space. This past weekend was the Pangos Jr. All-American Camp in Long Beach, California. I know you had some vested interest in that a little bit. There was a lot of Texas guys, and
right.
I got to see them. There's some players from all over. I think 18 states were there. Dinos Trigonis, our guy, runs his Junior All-American Camp. It's been about his 10th year, and it's grown really from a kind of regional camp to a lot of local kids to really a national scope. There was kids from Pennsylvania, there was kids from Midwest a bit, and a lot of California kids, and Georgia kids always travel. They love to compete. So let me just run down some of the best players I saw. I mean, again, I'm not going to spend. We don't have to spend much time on, but I just want to throw the names out there. These kids are going to be good high school kids, and then you could kind of talk a little bit about a couple of the kids you may already know. So this weekend before, I got to see probably the best 226 in California, and his name is Brandon McCoy Jr. He wasn't there this past week, but I wanted to mention him because Northern California has a great class. Brandon is like 6'3", and these are 226. So to the listeners out there, when we say 226, they're 8th grade going into 9th next fall. 227th and 7th going into 8th. So I want people to kind of, we're almost talking like the years are just going by on each.
Right. Like
what's going on here? So yeah, we're already talking about 227. So
we'll be talking about 227s pretty soon.
Yeah. So in high school, yeah, it's just nuts. So Brandon McCoy's a 226. He's a swingman guard. Could play a little of the point. He's super explosive, and his team is the travel team's the Why Not favorites. They're coached by Dorrell Wright, whose brother DeLon Wright plays in the NBA, and Dorrell's played in the NBA as well a little bit. One of the many pros coached by Reggie Morris Jr., who's also coached Russell Westbrook in high school. So he has a good crop, and a couple of them did come back to play again. Caden Bailey from Sage Oak, California, 6'3" guard, 226. He did really well. And there's quite a few good 226 from California. So I'm just going to run down these guys in order. Another Northern California player who ended up being the MVP of the camp, strong kid, 6'7", 226, Tyran Stokes. Kind of plays like a John Chaney type guy at Temple, like no nonsense.
That's a throwback right there.
Yeah, maybe like a little bit like a Texas Tech kind of guy, just strong. He was blocking shots. He ended up being the camp MVP. Another top 2 or 3 guy there was Brandon Martinson. He's from 6'7", 226 out of Aliso Viejo, Orange County, California. He did very well. Shea Brogan, kind of a swingman guard, plays a little bit like Manu Ginobili. Lefty, can score, get to the bucket. Shea's dad is Tommy Lewis, who played at Pepperdine. And Shea's mom, I believe, played in the WNBA. And Shea most likely will go to Valley Christian of Cerritos, where his father coaches. I'm sure he's going to end up there. He's another 226. Maximus Van Lanningham. He's from Northern California as well, 6'7". in the All-Star game, best of the best. He saved the game for his team with a block shot at the end. Again, he can play a little bit on the ball, forward, 10 points, 3 blocks in that game. Like I said, the game winner. Got to give him a shout out. Again, another Northern California player who's really good. Braden Davison from Orange, California. Braden, 6'1" guard, did really well. Moving on, Jaden Bales. Now, Jaden's from San Diego, 6'1", 226. Jaden was one of the last picks for the All-Star game. He really was. I mean, because obviously we went over the selections with Dinos, and he got in there and he ended up being his team's MVP. 13 points. Did really well. Jaden Bales was MVP along with Isaiah Slim Rogers. He's from Corona. He's most likely going to go to Corona Centennial. Slim is a 5'10" guard, can score. He had 14 points. Slim plays for the Compton Magic. Very well known. Another Compton Magic kid, Justice Griffith. He plays a little like our guy from Baylor who got drafted to the Kings. Justice really
Mitchell
defensively.
Yeah.
Even looks like, little pit bull.
Just a pest.
Yeah, he's a 5'10", 5'11".
Mm-hmm.
Scoring side he's working on his perimeter game, but he's such a good rebounder, such a good athlete. He just beats guys to the punch. Guys can't stay in front of him. So Justice is a really good player. Nathan Earl from Wheeler, Marietta, Georgia, or he may be going. It's Wheeler here, but I heard he may be going to another school, so we'll watch to see where he goes. Big guard, 6'2", got 11 points in the All-Star game. Nathan, play on the ball, off the ball. Really a true combo guard who can do a lot of good things. A guy you may be familiar with, and from Brendan High School he's listed at, from San Antonio, Isaiah Ward, real skilled at 6'4", 6'5". I give him a top 10 nod. He did really well. His skill level really stood out amongst the top guys. 9 points, 5 rebounds in the All-Star game. Again, there's 25 guys playing in an All-Star game. So when we say these numbers, people probably think, well, he didn't play that good. Well, yeah, those are pretty good numbers.
Yeah.
They're subbing in and out a lot. So
right, like every 5 minutes they get subbed.
Yeah, every 5 minutes they're subbing in and out. So let's go over the 227s, like you said. Wow, 227s. Tyler Sutton from Philly, really good player. Somebody to watch in the future. Tyler did a really good job. He's 5'11" out of Philadelphia. Jaden Berry, another Corona kid, 5'8" guard, did could handle the ball, obviously run point, look for the open man. He did a good job. Hunter Kaplan, good scorer, good energy, good skill level. Hunter's from Van Nuys, California. Another 227 who added like a 35 or 40-point game to open the camp and really caught people's eyes. Gary Ferguson from Inglewood, 227. And I got to mention one of the 228s, Austin Kurtzky, 228, 6th grader, did really well. So, Ani, I did mention from San Antonio, Isaiah Ward. What other couple kids can you give us a little bit about Isaiah? And then there was a few other kids from Texas there. And, that you may know, and, give us a rundown on 8th graders in Texas.
Isaiah Ward, Ward out of Brennan High School in San Antonio. I mean, he's a talented player, about 6'4", 6'5", athletic, kind of your Swiss Army knife. Especially when I seen him in games, just gets a lot done. Assists. He sometimes is the team's primary ball handler. He's defending multiple spots. He just gets a lot done. That 8th grade class is very interesting in Texas. There's another kid, Donovan. I forgot his last name. It's gonna kill me about him. Donovan Chris can really shoot the basketball. Really shoots the basketball, quick trigger. Seen the handle really improve over the years. It's crazy. I've seen that kid since like 6th grade. But just he's a talented kid that I really like. They both play on that San Antonio Future team. But in Texas, that 2026 class. It's talented. They kind of remind me a little bit of the 24 class because you got solid size. You got really good guard play. And the thing is, like, we continue to get guys moving in that's like, hey, we're at 2026. From other states. So that class is low. They kind of remind me of that 24 class in Texas. That's shaping up to be pretty strong as well. A couple of kids that were there, like Amari James, I seen.
Yeah.
I believe from Georgia, like a physical 6'1" guard. Um, like him a lot. Aiden Martin, I think he's a 2027. That's from Texas. About 6'2", 6'3", good length,
Yeah.
skilled. I think he has a chance to be really good. I think he has a chance to be one of the best players when it's all said and done a couple of years from now in Texas.
Wow. Yeah.
He's a really intriguing prospect. But yeah, I was supposed to come down.
Okay.
I was supposed to come down to
Yeah.
Cali to go to
Yeah.
that, and I hate that I didn't because, like you said, it has become more of a national
Yeah.
thing, and
Yeah.
I had other plans I had to make.
Yeah.
But man, like I do hate because one thing, like when I first started the players I watched was middle school, was
Sure.
was the Rising 8, the Rising 9.
Yeah.
Just to kind of track and kind of see like how guys develop over time, right?
Right.
So you can see what doesn't work and what does what
Yeah.
does work. So you can evaluate kids. I feel like it's helped me become a better evaluator. So I do hate that
No, yeah, no doubt. I like the middle school. Obviously, the best player at this camp over the years by far it's not even close so far, is DeAndre Ayton. He was
man child.
it wasn't even, I mean, it didn't matter which team he played on, they were gonna dominate. That was 10 years ago, basically, 2013. And yeah, you think of some of the players that, like you said, is this player gonna be is this player gonna be good down the line, or is he good now? So I like to see that there was players that were, not overgrown and oversized, jumbo sized Big Mac meals. They're going to be
Right.
good down the line. They're not like like overdeveloped now. There's a lot of players that are going to be good. There wasn't a lot of domination from guys that are going to be like 6'2" power forwards.
Right.
What I mean?
Right.
Guys that are going to be good college prospects down the
You
line.
talked about that NorCal class in the 26.
Yeah.
Who would you compare that class to? Is it too early? But like you said, they have a chance to be really good. Does it kind of remind you of a class you've seen in the past?
Yeah. Trying to think. There was a good class from Northern California with Dominique Artis and Brandon Ashley, who ended up at Finley Prep, and they were good college players. I'm just trying to think of a more recent class. It's probably going to be one of the better classes in a long time from Northern California. If these guys stay there, it's starting with Brandon McCoy, it's like he's just super. Right now, he's probably in the pole position. Obviously, we're not here to rank 8th graders on this podcast.
Right.
He's the guy you're going to look at and say, okay, how does my kid match up to him, or where does he can be really talented, and obviously people will get it. He'll get a lot of attention. So I that class kind of stands out to me, which was Brandon Ashley. That's excuse me. That's probably like 13 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Brandon was a senior in 2012, so that would have been 2008 or 2009. So it's been a while since Northern California's had some depth like this, like with the guys I mentioned. So it's going to be, very interesting to see how they all go to school, where they go to school, and if they stay together. What happens a lot of times is a group of players in California will try to go to the same school, and then they go their own path. That's happened like with 4 or 5 of the best classes over the last 30 years. If you Google Cal High sports, top 8th graders since 1982, I did a story about 5 years ago, and it has all the classes, like who were the best 8th graders since like the mid 80s, early 80s. And just interesting to see where they went to school and like how they all had notions like, hey, we're all going to go to high school together, and then they broke up. You know what I mean?
Right.
It'll be very interesting to see. I think the famous class is that book, Play Their Hearts Out, with Joe Caller's Phenom Camp. All those guys were supposed to go to, with Demetrius Walker, who obviously was a big name in the middle school scene. They were all supposed to go to the same high school, and it didn't work out. So I think that's really interesting to see by choosing high school, how that affects where people kind of stand, and do they play with other good players, or are they playing the right position right away? Do they play right away, or do they go to a power like, a Modern Day or a Corona Centennial, where they're going to be on maybe sitting or even on the JV, like Justice Griffith, like the kid we just mentioned, and Slim Rogers. They can go to certain high schools and play a lot next year, but they're going to be behind, Jared McCain and those guys next year. So that might be a good thing long term. So a lot of things play into it. So yeah, just to answer your original question, it's one of the best classes in the last 10 years. So we'll see that, and we'll keep an eye on that. One other kid who did good from that group from San Antonio, he's also listed as Brandon, is Talon Todd with the T, Talon Todd. He did really good in the 8th grade game. But those are some guys to mention. Obviously, I can't mention all 185 guys that were there, but we're always looking for the next guy, and be very interesting. When you mentioned that 224 class, and our guy Buff is touting the 224 as the best player in the country. How was he in 8th grade? I mean, has he improved a lot already? Now was he always looked at as, hey, this kid's going to be a top 5 kid?
Trey, as an 8th grader, was really talented. I felt like he took another step towards like the latter part of his 8th grade year. In the beginning, you can tell he was like 1 or 2 on his team.
Yeah.
But like, I thought he really separated himself by June, July, because I got this, because he played with Drive Nation. Gotcha. And so I got to see, I would come to practice and everything, and then like the more long, towards the season, you're like, oh, he's, really came along. He didn't just really stand out like Keontae George in 8th grade. Those guys were like, whoa.
Really good.
Tyrese Maxey, Chris Harris, just I didn't kind of go down. Just I thought towards the end of the season it was like that. Like he was, but I thought in the beginning he kind of was just trying to figure it out. Harrison Ingram, all those guys. I just kind of go down the list. Like there are guys that really just was so far ahead of everybody else in 8th grade. But I thought Trey came along towards the end.
Gotcha. Mm-hmm. And like I said, with Stokes, Tyran Stokes, and Brandon Martinson and Trey Brogan, they're good players now, but they're not like, oh my God, these guys are just so physically dominant. These guys are skilled. They're getting more and more skilled, as a group. Like I said, they might be one of the most skilled groups. And obviously Brandon McCoy Jr. leads that group in terms of like, we'll see where he ends up in a year or two. If he's still, on target as the guy to catch and so, quote unquote, the guy to catch. So let's move on from the youth scene. We'll jump into the NBA scene. And obviously that's a little bit more dissected. People know more about it. But I mean, when you talk about the NBA, you always got to talk with the Lakers are always going to be something to talk about. Good or bad. And right now it seems like it's all bad. And it's gone bad fast. So something happened, I guess, over the weekend. As you listen to this in the middle of the week, the Lakers needed a good game against the Pelicans. They came in that game having lost 8 of 11. And then all of a sudden they're down 22 points with 5 minutes to go in the third. And then, Ani, why don't you just take us what happened through after that? Like, I mean, they're down 22. What happens after that?
I mean, it was just the whole game was bad. I remember I was actually in a bar just watching the game, right? Like they're like, what was that one pass? They threw it just way out of bounds.
Yeah.
The defense was just lazy. Lakers were just bad. I didn't really catch much of the floor because it got so bad. Like I probably watched like the first 3 or 4 minutes and I left. Yeah. But I was moving around. I was like, oh, let me stay here. Chill, let me watch the game. And it's like, okay, Lakers will figure it out. I mean, they're going to beat the Pelicans, right? Yeah. And then it got worse. Then bad pass, bad shot.
Yeah.
Not getting back on defense. Then it's really, really poor pass. And then all of a sudden it's just you're down 22.
Yeah.
And just the Lakers, I mean, they look like they're ready for the season to be over. I mean, they look like some of these high school kids right now on some of these teams, just like throwing right, like we don't have a playoff chance, even though they do. But like we don't have a playoff chance, or we're gonna get beat in the first round bad. Like we got Duncanville first round. We're gonna, like they look like some of these teams, not like this have this year, but like they look like some of these teams that just like, hey man, like
it's not happening. I'm getting ready for spring AAU. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So, I guess Jeannie Buss, the Lakers owner, was at the game. She took off when you took off from the bar. She took off from the game. So she didn't last. Then LeBron's talking to some fans. He gets into it. and then Trevor Ariza really gets into it and kind of had to be restrained a little bit. You know, Trevor Ariza is not one to hold punches.
No.
Trevor Ariza will tell it like it is. You know, the former Westchester star, the former UCLA, and then long time in the NBA. He's been in a long time in the NBA now.
Right.
So Trevor has a Trevor. Speaking of Trevor, he has a young son who's going to be good. He's in the 8th grade, I think, in North Carolina. So we can't wait to see him down the line. But yeah, he wasn't thinking about that at that time. He wanted to go pissed because again, the fans are pissed. So
right.
I guess you know, like you said, it's not the end of the world, but because they're still in 9th place, I think they're 2.5 games out of the net from the next team above them. So they're not like in the cellar, but with the Lakers, it's like people didn't expect them to be there. So what's your take, Ani? What's your heart in the take, Pink? Are they tanking it in, or is it just they're just trying to get into that 8th or 9th seed, get in that little mini, you know, playoff play-in and make it happen, or is it not going to happen?
I don't think they know what they want to do. Like, yeah. I think when you're in such that mediocrity trail, like to me, if I was them, like if I was just, I would just tank, right? Wow. Because you know you're not. Well, I'd be an 8th and 9th seed, and I'm losing the first round. That's probably what's going to happen. Okay. I think some days they look like they want to be in the playoffs and they want to potentially make a run at it, which they have the. I think they have the talent to do it. If they're all healthy and they're all clicking, they all have a mindset of, you know, this is what we want to do. I think they can, you know, maybe surprise some people. And then some days I just think they're like, man, like, screw this. I don't think they know what they really want to do because some games they look good. I mean, prior to losing 8 out of 11, I mean, they had some good showings and they look like a team that, okay, if they were an 8 seed, if I'm a number 1 seed, I probably don't want to play them if they're clicking, you know? Yeah, they wouldn't be an 8 seed I would want to see. But then they just look like, man, like, I think it's kind of like what you said about Arizona.
Yeah.
When it start going bad,
yeah,
they just take bad shot. They're just like, screw it. They don't recover
well from a bad stretch. Yeah.
Right. And it's crazy with all the veterans in there and stuff like that. But like, I don't know. In my opinion, I would say that they're probably ready for the season to be over with. Wow. If there was 10 days, they played 10, I would say probably 7 out of 10 days, they're probably ready for the season to be over with. They're like, okay, we just don't care. And then, but 3 of those days, they're like, you know what? Maybe we should try. Maybe we can get it. Yeah. But I will lean towards that. They don't want. They're done with the season.
Okay. Wow, that's a hard take. That's interesting because again, these are pros. They're all good players, but they need motivation, right? I mean, you got to motivate pros as much as anything. You got to be on the same page because it's not the talent, like you said. It's not like a high school team that doesn't have talent and they're fighting. And they have no chance against Duncanville or Corona Centennial or Montverde or something like that. Like they got the chance, they got the talent. So again, it may be different agendas. You know, this is a big time business now. Even a bigger overarching question is: did the Lakers make a mistake by not making a move before the trade deadline? And is that souring and souring their energy out? Did they want to make a move? They couldn't make a move, and now it's like, hey, we're stuck with this group, or did they want us to keep this group together and try to turn it around?
I don't think they have very limited moves they could make, especially with just the salaries of like Russell Westbrook stuff. I think the only moves you really could make would be moves where you're tanking. So Lakers history. I mean, and they're not about doing that. So they probably looked at it like, okay, how do we make this better? Can we salvage this season and get to the playoffs and do something? Because we don't want to tank. Especially with a team with LeBron on it, I don't think tanking is an option.
One of the best players in the world and the most scrutinized and most watched player in the world. And they're aging, he's aging. So we're going to get into that a little bit here. But again, now the bigger question, I'm really going to put you on the spot. I put you on the spot at least once a week.
Oh, yeah.
Once a show. Was all the moves they made to get a bubble championship worth it? Like you said, if this doesn't work out and they don't get better next year, LeBron's going to be 37, 38 years old. Should they have done that to mortgage their future? They don't have many great young pieces. Not that they like the ones they gave up. Was it worth it?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's all about winning championships at the end of the day. If you don't win, if you didn't win in the bubble, what's the chances that they win it now, right? We don't know. At least we do know that they did win a championship. I thought some moves that they made, like getting Russell Westbrook, I thought they could have been smarter with just the free agent signings, with the trades, which they wouldn't have to be in the situation. But I think if you feel like this is your championship window and we have a chance to win it, I think you go all in. But I do believe that they made bad decisions. I think kind of like the Mavs, obviously it's different, but it's not like, the Mavs won in 2011 and then they didn't really make moves to they had to make a decision. Do we keep that team or do we let it all go? And then it's like ever since then, they haven't made it past the first round since 2011. It's kind of those hard decisions you make, but I think once you win it, I think once you win it, that's the goal, right?
Yeah.
And then you just have to make smart decisions after that. Like, if you don't have draft picks, it's going to be smart free agent signings. It's going to be smart trades. Getting aging superstars is not it, right? Russell Westbrook is definitely not it with LeBron James and, Anthony Davis, which they call him street clothes. It's
just maybe a bad mix right now. Yeah, it's a couple little moves they needed to make this work. I see what you're saying.
Right, like Dennis Schroeder, even though they got rid of him, but like he wasn't very good last season. I mean, just they could have been better with the signings. Probably if they would have been a little bit more tactical with the signings, free agent signings, I think they would be in a better place. They're not like it's not. If you took Russell Westbrook and you had a guy that could really let's say like a Seth Curry out there, I think that makes LA a lot better. So I just something simple like that and would have saved you a lot of money. So
correct.
Yeah. I mean, now my question, can LeBron lead a team to a championship? Does he win another championship in LA?
The way the team's going right now, I don't think they win another championship in LA. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't think they win another championship in LA. It's very interesting how that happens because, like you said, let's go back to Kobe Bryant real quick. When they won in 2010, the second of their back-to-back, they had a young Andrew Bynum, and they had a couple young pieces, right?
Right.
And Gasol was not that old. And then all of a sudden, Bynum gets hurt. They make a couple moves, and all of a sudden, that team seems like it's aging really fast.
Right.
They got old and broken down really fast, and they weren't very good. So that seems to be happening with the Lakers a little bit. Like you said, LeBron is getting older. He's not necessarily carrying a championship team like he was before. And now all of a sudden you got AD, who's I don't want to compare him to Andrew Bynum because he's a better player, but if he's not healthy, he's in that same mode of like, was he going to be available? Is he not going to be available? And then you're like, dang, now they're looked at as an aging team with not a lot of room for growth. Their window is not big.
Right.
Which wasn't the case when you looked at the 220 roster. You're like, this team could win in 221.
Mm-hmm.
It's not looked at the same all of a sudden. So the projection of the whole thing changes. So like, are the Lakers going to lose him in free agency and he's going to finish in Cleveland or somewhere else? Or like, should the Lakers try to get something for him and AD and start again?
Right.
Is that too drastic or should they do that, Ani?
Yeah. I think if you're LA, I think you got to rebuild. I don't think I know how competitive it is, but if you can get assets and pieces and rebuild, I think it's time to rebuild if you're in LA after this season. I mean, AD's gonna stay being hurt. I hope that he doesn't, but it seems like that's where it's going. LeBron ain't getting no younger. I think you do rebuild. I think you do rebuild and you get younger because keeping them, you're not gonna win. I think, like you said, the window. I think it's shut.
Shut down pretty fast.
So if it's about winning championships and we're just keeping them, but we're not going to win any championships with them, let's go younger. Let's rebuild. Let's figure it out. Now, my question. So you said something very, very interesting because I was thinking about it. If you're the Cleveland Cavaliers, do you take LeBron James?
Yes, because the reason I say that is because they're going to say draft. You're going to have signs up saying, get Bronny, get Bronny, get Bronny. I mean, the Cleveland would, that's the ones that now almost every city would embrace that. I'm not sure the Lakers would embrace that.
Right.
Because of him being at Sierra Canyon and just the whole thing with, but I think a team like Cleveland, like if he can help them be more competitive, but they have a good nucleus. That's the thing with Cleveland. Like they have a good nucleus of young players led by Evan Mobley and your guy Allen from Texas.
Yep.
You know, like that's a good young core. And Allen's an all-star.
Yeah. Darius Garland's an all-star.
Yeah, Darius Garland made the all-star team. Like, and you got a really good piece in the middle. So do you want to kind of, you know, you bring in LeBron, there's a chance you're bringing in Bronny. Like, oh boy, does that screw up that whole chemistry?
Right.
Like, you're going on the right path. Like Cleveland seems excited what they're doing. So what team does he go to? I don't know. But I mean, I think Cleveland would, I don't think they would not take him. I love Darius Garland. I love our guy Allen, and I love LeBron is like the de facto owner of the city. You know what I mean? Like, I hate it's just the way it goes. So I that would be a very interesting mix. I could see that happening. I don't think Cleveland's gonna be, I don't think I'm sorry, LA is gonna be, now that I look at it, I don't think LA is gonna be LeBron's last stop. If you'd have told me in 220, I said, hey, he's gonna retire here.
For sure.
You know, but now it looks different. I mean, just the perception of it looks different. The whole team is, you know, the fans are booing. They're not very good. They're good. But they're treading water, like you said. They're not. There doesn't seem like to be a big window or a big opportunity there. So something's going to have to happen, which has changed very fast. And then obviously fortunes can change fast. So let's talk about what LeBron said in the All-Star weekend. And again, he kind of let it be known, and we've kind of known this a little bit, but he let it out publicly, like he wants to play with Bronny his last year in the league, whenever that is. So for right now, we're talking about Bronny James. His son's about 6'3", 6'4", around that size, 223 junior at Sierra Canyon, who's still in the playoffs, trying to bounce back from losing to Corona Centennial, and they're in the regional tournament this week. So Bronny has at least one game tomorrow. Tuesday, as you shoot this pod, the game will be Wednesday, and maybe a few more games if they win. We'll see. They could get Corona Centennial again, but the pressing issues as a junior, he would be 223, then 1 year removed if they don't change the rules. So that's 224. 224. He would go into the draft. For LeBron, that seems a little bit away.
Right.
Like still a little bit away. Like
for
he's
sure.
Close to 40. 38, 39, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I think it'd be 39, yeah.
39. So, and he's let it out there that, you know, he wants to play with Bronny. So, you know, 3 more seasons, really, you know. So, Ani, what's your initial reaction to that? And then I'll kind of give my spill. What's your initial, when you hear that, you're like, whoa, you know, but what's your initial thought?
You know, my initial thought was, as a dad, anybody would want to play in their son in the NBA, right? Like,
never
happened. Yeah, I mean, now the next thing is how, like, I'm not going to be here to say, hey, is Bronny a one and done or whatever. Right. I think that's that's another animal.
Yeah.
But, you know, does that put pressure on a team to take Bronny? Like, let's say Bronny goes in his first year in college, regardless of what it is, and he says, I'm going to the draft.
Yeah.
Now, whatever team LeBron's on, if it's Lakers, this is Cleveland or wherever, do you feel the pressure to have to take him?
Does it mean, let me jump in here real quick. Does it mean they want him to be drafted because look at my son got drafted, it's a big celebration, or we're just saying, no, dude, we're going to bring him into training camp. We're not drafting him, but we're bringing him into training camp, and he's probably going to make the team wink, wink.
Right.
Like, what situation is this? Because I don't think any franchise is going to waste a 16th pick or a 19th pick or a ninth pick on for Bronny. I just don't
Right.
see that. But second round pick, maybe.
Yeah.
But it seemed easier just bring him into camp.
Yeah, just bring him to training camp and then just like you said, kind of give him a rust like they did with Giannis's brothers who've been around for a while. But like probably something along the lines of that. I think that someone did that for J.R. Smith and his brother. They brought him into the camp. So I mean, like you said, we've seen that before.
Yeah.
My initial thought was, man, like, does that put pressure on whatever organization he's on to have to do that? Is that pressure or what, kind of what happens? Does that, I'm thinking, does that put pressure on Bronny? But, obviously him and LeBron probably had that conversations hundreds of times. Right. Yeah. But it's interesting. It's very interesting. One of the questions I think, it's like, is that like a underlying way of like LeBron saying that he's frustrated in LA? And, my answer to that is, I mean, he should be, he should be frustrated in LA anyways. Right. But I mean, I don't think
frustrated at himself, frustrated at the teams.
Just everything. I think he's not happy in LA anyways. And I think it kind of just something he said that to deflect the frustrations that he's having right now, to talk about something that's in a more positive light note of playing with his son. He wants to play with his son in the NBA. So that's kind of my take on it.
Yeah, it's positive for him because, like you said, it's positive for his family. But me looking at it, it's not that big of a positive. Like, now, if his son was the number one player in his class, I would say, wow, that's a great story. Could be a great story,
right.
But it's kind of like, wait a minute. Because again, if that day comes, I'm telling you, if that day comes, Ani, we're on episode 225, we're going to bring a pro onto the pod.
Oh, yes.
A guy who's fighting for a roster spot and get his take.
Yes.
And that's what, you know what I mean? Of a guy who's like a borderline NBA player. I want to hear from him.
Yeah.
Not me and you who's not going to play in the NBA. Right? Like, I want to hear a dude who's like fighting for a spot.
I talked to a former, like borderline, like overseas NBA player, and I won't say his name, but like we were talking about it on Saturday, and he just said, man, I was killing in the workouts, but because this guy played at university here and this guy's alumni here, he got the spot. But I said in the workouts I killed. So you see, it happens. It happens in the NBA, and like you said, like episode 235, bringing for a pro that whoever are pro, we bring him in. He's probably got stories about that, trying to get in.
That's what thing, and that's the thing you don't want to see. Like if I'll just give you an example. I have Bronny right now because I do California rankings for college coaches and for people out there to see. And I have him ranked number 12 in the state of California. And number 12. Like, so that tells you what I think of him nationally,
right.
That 100, 80,
in the hundreds,
115, somewhere in there.
Mm-hmm.
Not bad. Good player. And he's getting better. He's moving up. He shot some ball pretty well. Defends. He has a big body. He's not LeBron size. He's about 6'4". He does a pretty good job. He's had a little bit of injuries in past years. COVID obviously affected him just like it affected anybody else.
Right.
But he's coming along, and that's kind of where you're talking about a top 100 player, not a top 5 or a top 10. Like, we're already talking about him being in the NBA. That's, again, is that where we're going? Is that good? Is that talk good for the NBA, or do people just give it an exception because it's Ronnie and it's LeBron?
Yeah, I think the public, the general public, just gives an exception because it's Bronny. I think for guys like us, I think it's not a good thing.
Oh no!
Obviously, we you're in the 100s nationally.
Yeah.
You being a one and done is very rare. So now it's just, I don't think it's a good thing. I don't think it's a good thing. But to the general public, I think they just put it past because it's Bronny.
Yeah, it's LeBron.
It's LeBron. It's Bronny. We love watching them. Bronny fills out seats here. He fills out seats here every time he's here. Regardless of what he does. I mean,
Oh yeah,
if there's 10,000 seats available, he's gonna fill all 10,000 seats.
yeah. Like our guy Glenn Smith when he had him down there for the Hoop Fest, it's probably one of the most well attended regular season games in Texas history.
Right? Yeah.
Besides maybe a state Final Four. So yeah, I mean, we know that we know his draw. We know why. It's just something to talk about, something to watch as it comes closer. Because, like I said, we know guys that are fighting to get 10-day contracts to get in training camp, and that happens, and that's part of life. And that's like not the 450 very best players are not in the NBA at that time. Sometimes you get a guy who played for that coach or knows his agent, or the agent knows that coach well, or they have a previous relationship, or he knows his father. There's a million stories.
Yeah,
everybody has a story behind them, so it's something to keep track of as it goes along. And see, like you said, this talk wouldn't be something to talk about if the Lakers were in first place or the favorites to win the NBA title. I think that's where it kicks in. It kind of changes the narrative a little bit. So in your opinion, if the Lakers have no window, we've kind of established that their window's not there, or it's not very big. Is LeBron now just already is LeBron now already saying, I'm going to retire with 4 championships most likely. I want to play with Bronny? Or does he still think he's getting another shot at another title?
Man, that's a great question. Yeah. I think LeBron still wants to get another title. I don't know if he's chasing Jordan, like like trying to get 6. I think LeBron wants to get one more title. I think in the perfect world, he wants to be on a championship contending team and his son be the 16th man, right?
In the perfect world, Cleveland's gonna win that 5th title for him,
right?
And Bronny's gonna be like deep on the bench,
right? But I think the latter option would be like a championship in itself for him. He get to play with his son. I think that's good enough. But I think LeBron, he's a competitive guy. I think he wants to. He's gonna go for one more. He wants to go for one more. No I think he just wants his cake and eat it too.
Yeah, for sure. Because you think of, he knows Kobe has 5. He knows Tim Duncan has 5.
Right.
He knows Bird's got 3. He knows Magic's got 5. Kobe got 5. 6 is another hurdle. He's running out of time for 6.
Yeah. I don't think that's happening. I think he knows that's not happening.
6 is like, whoa, that's Father Time is beating him on that one. But yeah, he knows where the great players are on the, on the scale of where he's going to finish up in terms of he could be the all-time leading scorer. Kareem's got 6 titles. We can't talk about Bill Russell. He's on a whole nother level. Wilt's got 2 titles. Bird got 3. And I kind of did a story on that on the NBA 75. I just took a crack at it. So when you get a chance, go to ballislife.com, check it out. I just, said, hey, these are my top 75 guys. And I actually ended up with 88 guys.
Really?
So that means is that the 75th guy, I'll just tell you who it is Damian Lillard. I thought Damian should have made the 100. I just don't think he should have made the 75. So I thought there was 13 guys who should have been on that team in front of Damian. Again, we've had Damian's high school coach on this pod. It's not a knock on Damian. He's a great player. I just thought he'd be more deserving for the 100. You know what I mean?
I agree with that. I thought he was more deserving of the 100 instead of the 75. I thought he still needed a little bit be put more on his resume to be on the 75 with that group.
Yeah, and a shout out to his coach Orlando Watkins, and it's very, he's a great guy. He, we got to watch him in high school, and he was a little under the radar, but he's had a great career. So go check that out when you get a chance. It's gonna be a good time to tell you about our promotion. We still doing our in the pay promotion on shop.ballslife.com. Obviously, we want to promote our apparel across our platforms. This is one of them. 15% off your next order with us at shop.ballslife.com. The discount code is PAINT15. Once again, that's PAINT15. We got tees, shorts, backpacks. Ani, do you have anything? Do you have anything from Balls Life? Did you grab anything back in the day, or do you need something, man? Are we holding out on you?
No. I mean, obviously, I would take anything from Balls Life. I have about 2 shirts. I was like Balls Life when I was in high school. I watched even at school. So I took a journalism class in school, right? The only reason I did that, even though I have a journalism major, was because we get to get on the laptops, right? We get on the computers, and all I would do is watch Ballislife. I will not write not one article. I would just get on ballislife.com and watch. It was like John Wall, he said Brandon Ashley, like all the like Finley Prep, like watching all these teams. Like I was watching mixtapes in highlights all class. That was my favorite class. It was where you had Monday, Wednesday, Friday.
I got the Crime Stopper.
Right, all that. What's the kid? What's my man that went to from Mississippi that went to Texas Southern?
Ooh, man, you're drawing me. I'm not good at the rallying off the mixtape names offhand. I'd probably think about it.
Yeah,
I'd have to think about it. Ooh, who's that?
Jefferson was his last name.
What's his name?
Jefferson was his last name.
Ooh, maybe. Yeah, now that's ringing a bell to me now. Man, I know there's some guys out there you look at it, you're like, dang, he had a clean mixtape,
Aaron Gordon, Ballislife had
Aaron Gordon's mixtape is pretty nice.
Yeah.
Aaron Gordon was doing some really nice things in high school. Shout out to our guy Aaron Gordon at Midi from the Oakland Soldiers. Man, it's crazy. You talk about Aaron Gordon. Aaron Gordon is only like 26 or 27 years old still.
Whoa.
Like he was a young senior. It's like, dude, he's not even like he's been around so long,
Long, yeah. Like, since he was like 15, 16.
Yeah. He was young because he finished at 17. And his mom said a famous thing. I got to know him pretty well because he was at a couple of our events, and it was like, he's like, what's a holdback? Like this is Aaron's mom. Because his dad played at Bourbon Day High School in LA, Eddie Gordon. And he was like, his mom was like, I didn't know people did that. Like, Aaron's 16 years old. He's a senior. So what? Like, he's got to go to school. Like, because now you look at some of these guys, they're like 19 and a half when they finish high school.
Right.
That's a big difference now because instead of being 30, Aaron's 27. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like,
and that makes a big difference, especially just like with everything with his experience and he's 27 years old. He's still a young guy in the league. He hasn't even reached his peak yet.
Yeah, and that could help him get another contract. So it does make a difference out there, folks. You don't have to double and triple holdback people.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah, his mixtape was definitely good. Let's jump into another topic here. High school realm. Obviously, we talked about the state champions invitational. We had guests talking about that the last 2 weeks, and our guest, I guess we kind of jinxed them from 2 weeks ago, Grant Rice, on episode 117. Performing. It looks like we might have put the in the paint jinx on them because they went down to state. Again, you played Liberty. Liberty's a good team. Obviously, they beat Faith Family, who's in the UIL 4A front runners by far. They're nationally ranked, so we know they're good. And with Liberty's good, they took them to double overtime at the Tarkanian Classic, and then they took them to a deep, close game in the Southern Regional. But again, you have to play them again a week later, and finally, we know what happens. I don't know if you saw any of the highlights. I go over it on it if you didn't see any of the highlights. But
I saw a little bit. Yeah.
Gorman just didn't play that offense. A couple guys didn't have great offensive games. They were up still. Then Liberty outscored them 8-2 down the stretch to take an overtime. And then our guy D-Don Thomas, 224, hit a shot. Angelo Kambala, 223, hit a clutch layup. So now they're up 4, 2-possession game. John Mobley hits a 3 real late in, maybe with like 3 seconds to go. Then Gorman steals the inbound pass.
Yes.
You're thinking Abelman takes a 3 and it's just off. And then Liberty storms the court. So the 4-time was a charm for Liberty. Liberty beats them. Liberty moves up from 35 to 31. So it was more of a case of Gorman moving all the way down.
Right.
And obviously Gorman's not eligible for the state championships invitational. Liberty is, but they're not done where they're ranked because, again, Liberty could get invited and then they could lose their first game there and they'll drop, or they can move up and maybe play a Calvary or Dr. Phillips, beat them, and then that would help Gorman. So Gorman has a chance to finish higher, and Gorman can really still finish higher than Liberty. They beat them 3 times. So if Liberty does get invited and doesn't win it, Gorman could be ahead of them. They could be, depending on who they lose to or who they beat. So It's not over for Gorman in terms of the ranking. It's over in terms of their season. You play a team 4 times. It'd be like if Duncanville played Richardson 4 times instead of maybe 2 times.
Right.
It's
hard.
They're both going to win.
It's hard to beat a team twice, let alone 3 times. You talking about 4th? Like,
yeah, you're gonna get
they
caught slipping, like
they
you
know
said.
everything about you.
Anything could happen. So
Right.
that's a tough draw there. That was the big news, I think, this past week. So now we talk about the teams that can go. Obviously, Liberty, Garfield. I think at number 24, if they win the 3A title there in Washington, Garfield of Seattle, they have a good chance. They're undefeated. Now in the big game coming up, Pebblebrook versus Milton.
Ooh.
Now I say Milton because again, if Milton gets by Pebblebrook and wins that 7A title in Georgia, Milton beat Calvary Christian. So if Milton wins state, they're going to be like, hey, wait a minute, guys. Don't forget about us. We got a lot of losses, but we beat Calvary. So if Calvary wins, that's good for them. Like I said, then maybe they take 2 Florida teams, the events in Florida. So there's some teams to be considered there. Obviously, Arizona's wrapping up, Utah, a few other states, but those are the ones you look at, and obviously, that's a big decision to what they do. Ani, do you think, 2 questions for you? Would you think Liberty's in, and would you take like Dr. Phillips and Calvary, or would you try to take 4 teams from 4 different states?
I think Liberty's in with that win. Again, they were like a top 35 team in the country prior to. I think for sure that they get in. What I do love about the state champions and invitational is you have to win a state title. We talked about that before. Like, I do love the fact that like Gorman.
Gorman can't get in there without winning state. So definitely something they have to, like you said, they got to win state, and man, we may have jinxed Gorman, but that should be a great event. It's the 7th through 9th, and it should be a terrific event to close out the season. Obviously, Geico will be a week earlier, and the Final Four weekend. Matthews has the longest winning streak in the country, number 16. Matthews at 46 games. So we'll be watching all those events. Obviously, Nike Hoop Summit's coming back. The roster got announced April 8th in Portland. That event is coming back. So it's good to see some of these events come back into the fold as we close up this week's podcast. Episode 119. We appreciate you guys listening in. If you listen on Spotify, we're back on iTunes. We're a megaphone. So wherever you get your podcast, we appreciate you listening in, listening to our other podcasts. Thank you for your patronage each week. Thank you for tuning in to the audio version. If you get, like you said, just listening in the car or on your way to work, or if you're listening, on our YouTube page, we appreciate that as well. But for Ani and Ronnie, we're logging off on episode 119, and we'll see you next week.